Welcome to the Birth Lounge Podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts, support your mental health, and learn the tips and tricks that thousands of parents have used to craft their ideal birth. We will answer all of your questions, the scary ones and the weird ones, to help calm your fears and feel confident going into your birth. I'm going to help you redefine what birth and motherhood looks like and how to embrace your journey. I've intentionally crafted a list of experts to help you navigate pregnancy, explore your birth options, and plan for postpartum so that it can be a time of soaking in your tiny human. We're going to go there on all the hard topics so that you can dive deep into finding your confidence and freeing yourself from fears around birth. With over 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I created this podcast as a way to share the resources parents need to make educated and informed decisions about their care in pregnancy and childbirth. This is a birth community driven by evidence-based information and research in hopes to help you explore your options, understand your rights, and know what choices you have along the way when it comes to birth and beyond. I'm your host, Hee Hee. Now let's get to the good stuff. April, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Telling birth stories on this podcast is something that I don't do very often. The podcast is not focused on telling birth stories, but I have found them to be very powerful, not only for our audience, but also for myself, for being able to hold space for people to share different types of births, because that's my goal. I want our listeners to know your birth can be as individual as your fingerprint. The system's not designed like that. They want it to be very cookie cutter because it's easier, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so I have found that sharing different types of births, different birth outcomes, different birth stories is such a really cool way to empower our audience to just know that there are other options in the way that we can have our babies. You had a home birth with your first baby, and I think a lot of times when we see people who are home birthing, a lot of people had their first baby in the hospital because they say, it was my first baby. I just wanted, just in case, I want to be in the hospital. So, how did you come to the decision that home birth was right for you and it was your first?
My first, yeah. A lot of people say that when they heard that I was having a home birth with my first, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're crazy."
What?
Honestly, I got that a lot. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
having your
it's
baby
so funny.
where?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of shocked faces. It's very funny. But I came to this decision because a couple of years ago, I got into health coaching. I made a career switch, and I really just got into the more holistic way of doing things. And I think I heard from two people who had home births, and they actually were not successful. They had to be transferred. But I just got the idea into my head. I did a ton of research. And when I got pregnant, I interviewed a couple home birth midwives, and I found one I loved. And I was like, you know what? Let's do this. My husband was super supportive, which also helped. He was like all in for the home birth. So yeah, that's how I decided on it.
That's awesome. Okay, was your husband all in on the home birth from the beginning, or was there some sort of like educational piece that you had to do to educate him as well?
No, from the get-go, he was like, let's do it.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
so dreamy. Okay,
Yeah.
and then for your midwives, when you interviewed them, what were you looking for and what questions did you ask? Were you exploring their credentials? Did you do it off of a vibe? Was it a combination of things that you were looking for?
It was definitely a combination. I had looked up some questions to ask them, like their transfer rate and just a bunch of questions about how they would handle certain situations. And then definitely vibe as well. A lot of home birth midwives work out of their house, which was, you can really feel the vibe when you're walking into someone's house, and that really helped. So yeah, it was definitely a combination of questions and if I thought they were going to be a good fit for me.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Okay, and then my final question about your home birth decision is where was your closest hospital and how did you determine, like, all right, is this a safe option for me?
Yeah, so it's 5 minutes away, probably
Oh,
less. We
perfect.
can walk there.
Perfect.
But I did actually end up choosing a backup hospital that was like 20 minutes away because I just liked that one a little better. But we had the option 5 minutes away if we needed it, which definitely gave my parents and loved ones peace of mind for sure.
All the people who didn't have that same confidence that you and your hubby had in home birth. Yeah. Oh my God. I
Exactly.
totally get that. You're like speaking
Yeah.
to my soul. Okay. Can we hear your birth story? Will you tell that to us?
Of course,
Oh,
it's pretty quick. I got
okay.
really lucky with a quick labor for my first birth. So it was the day I turned 38 weeks. I was outside in my backyard working. We have a vegetable garden. I was working out there and my water broke. It's just out of nowhere. I turned to my husband. I was like, I think that was my water. I wasn't sure, obviously, my first birth. I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, did I just pee or is that my water? So walked inside and it kept coming out and I was like, that's it. That's my water. It broke. So we panicked for a second and then got really excited and we were like, all right, what do we need to do? Because it was 2 weeks earlier than we were expecting. So we needed like one part to fill up the birth pool at that point. So we actually ended up running out to Home Depot because I didn't start my contractions right away. I just had some like period cramps. So I was like, let's just go. I'll try to ignore them for now. By the time we got home, they were pretty strong and we started timing them. I'll tell you the time my water broke was around 2:15 p.m. We go back to that. So we got home, it was probably around 5-ish and the contractions were 2 to 3 minutes apart at this point and 30 to 45 seconds long each. So it was ramping up quickly. Called my doula to come over and she got there around 6. She started doing hip squeezes and was just helping me. My husband was blowing up the birth pool up in our bedroom. And yeah, they progressed really fast. I was definitely starting to audibly be in pain from the labor, but throughout the whole time, the main thing I kept thinking was to relax and breathe, because when you're having the contraction, all you want to do is just tense up your entire body. So in my head, I was just like, breathe, relax. And I think that really helped a lot with the pain because obviously it was unmedicated at home. Around, I don't know, maybe 7-ish, started feeling super nauseous. I threw up and my doula was like, yep, you're in transition. Let's call your midwife. We obviously had her on the phone. We were talking to her and she was only 20 minutes away. She came over. When she got there, she was like, you're ready. You can get in the pool if you want. I freaking jumped in that thing. I was like, get me in that pool. So got in the birthing pool and it was amazing. I didn't know what to expect with the pool. I didn't know how much relief it was going to bring. And it didn't obviously take the pain away, but it was even just an extra layer of relaxation and it felt amazing. So I was in the pool for a couple contractions, very painful ones, and I started to feel some pressure. And I was on my knees at this point and I turned over onto my back and I could honestly feel baby coming down the birth canal. Like it was such a cool experience. I could just really feel everything. And I was just really letting my body do what it had to do, trying not to restrain against anything and just feel everything and go with it. So I felt her come down, had another contraction or two, and someone, I don't remember if it was my midwife or her assistant, yelled, go ahead, reach down if you want to. You can feel the head. And I was like, oh my God. So I reached down, felt the head, which was the craziest experience. And it gave me honestly a lot of motivation to keep going once I felt the head. I didn't know if it was a girl or a boy at this point, so I keep saying the baby. So I felt the head, another contraction or two, and I look down and I see her face under the water, it makes me really emotional because it was to see your baby's head coming out of you. And it was just so surreal. So one more contraction and her shoulders came out and she was born. The cord was actually wrapped around her neck twice and her body, but it was totally fine. My midwife, it's very calm, unwrapped it and put her on my chest. My husband was there. He was trying to catch her. He really wanted to, but my midwife was like, I gotta get this off of her neck. So he's kind of pushing his hands away a little bit, but he got in there. He was amazing. So puts her on my chest, and I knew right away it was a girl. I didn't even have to look. I felt it. I knew it. Yeah, it was wild. But I did just look just to check, and it was a girl. And she was very loud, very vocal from the beginning. She latched on right away, and I fed her for a little bit in the pool. And then probably 15 minutes later, placenta came out. And yeah, that was really it. We moved to the bed and I nursed her some more, and it was amazing. It was incredible.
Okay, that is amazing. That is so dreamy in so many ways. I think there's a lot of people out there who, if they got to pick how things went, that's probably what they would want. But I find a lot of times the fear holds people back. So I'm so interested in how you came to trust birth so much in your body, because you mentioned I just gave into it. I just let my body do what it needed to do. I let go. I released all control. Whatever my body needed, I followed. I responded. I listened. How did you get to that place? Because that is a place that so many people just can't access. And I think a lot of people try and they're like, I am literally doing my best. I'm trying so hard,
Yes,
but they
yes,
just can't get there. What work have you done to get there?
a lot. I did a lot
Okay.
of work to,
Okay, so this is
I
not just
definitely
like
did.
in pregnancy. Like you are doing this work outside of pregnancy before you were pregnant. This is years of work.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. It for sure. So being a health coach, I am obviously super conscious of everything that I put into my body. I'm super active. I spend time outside. I would say I'm a very healthy person to begin with. So I think that definitely helped with the birthing aspect. Before I got pregnant, I stopped drinking. I even improved my diet even more than it was to begin with, prioritizing protein, stuff like that. So when we got pregnant, it happened right away, and I think my body was just, it was ready for that. And then as far as the mental aspect, I listened to so many birth stories, so many. Ina May's book was one really big one for me, that I read all the birth stories in there. And that really helps you get ready for anything that could happen, good or bad. I was just, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I truly think that reading and listening to all those birth stories really helped. I also listened to countless podcasts, yours included. I would walk when I was pregnant, every day I would take a walk and I would listen to another podcast episode about something, pregnancy, postpartum, whatever it was. I listened to it. I wanted to know as much as I could possibly know going into the birth. And I, of course, was scared. I had fears. I wrote all my fears down, which really helped. For some reason, it helped just to visualize it and just accept that this stuff could happen. It could, and we'll deal with it when it happens. I also think that my personality is just very laissez-faire, and I'm very chill to begin with. So I think that also helped. I'm not a super anxious person. So I think that helped. And also the last thing is my support. My husband was amazing throughout pregnancy, the birth. He was just on it. He was never freaked out at all. He was just really very supportive. So that is the final thing that really helped.
It does help to have a partner that's like really educated and informed and confident and
Mhm.
believes in you. It really is so hard to birth with a partner that is very fearful of birth and hasn't done the work and believes in you because they love you, but is very skeptical of how things are going to go. We really want our partners to be strong partners. We want them to be informed. We want them to have that confidence, not only in you, but in birth and also in themselves. So, what did your husband do to prepare for this? How was he working on himself, maybe mentally, maybe spiritually, maybe educationally, to get ready to support you in a setting that, it doesn't get a lot of light? Everything that we see is in the hospital. A lot of courses that are made are for dads in the hospital. So, what was your husband doing to prepare? And chronically, like just traditionally, historically, husbands they get very little support. So I know that there are so many men out there who are like, I want to help, I want to be
Mhm.
supportive, I want to be
Oh,
good in the
yeah.
birth room, but I don't know what to do. And also, I don't really know where to find help. I don't know where to find this information. So talk us through that for anybody who's listening, being like, I don't even know how to prepare my partner.
Yeah. He definitely leaned on me a lot for that aspect. He asked me, he's like, how can I best prepare for this? How can I support you? What can I do? And I gave him a ton of resources. So he read books, we did birthing classes. He came to almost every midwife appointment with me. Every appointment that we had to go to, he came just because he wanted to know everything that he could possibly know. He asked questions. My husband asked a lot of questions. So he was just curious about he wanted to know as much as I wanted to know everything, so did he. And I think that was one of the biggest things, was just asking a ton of questions. And then mentally, he's also a very chill person like I am. So I don't think he had issues with that. I think as long as he kept up with his workouts, he was good. I forgot about this in the birth story. Midway through labor, he went to our gym and did a quick work. He was like, I need to just go lift some weights really quick. So he went in there, and the doula had to go in and be like, I think you should come back now, because I was in transition. So that's very funny.
That's so funny. And it also highlights that this is an experience for our partners too. And a lot of times I think that's lost, especially in the hospital. It's very mom focused. And I think we need to really be just recognizing that no matter where you birth, your partner is experiencing this too. And this is
Mhm.
your first time going through this. It's also your partner's first time. Think about how much you feel like you don't know. It's happening in your body times 10. Your partner is feeling that. It's not in their body. They have no idea what these sensations feel like.
Mhm.
So I think for everyone listening, keep that in mind too. Your partner might need to leave. Might need to go for a walk. In our one-to-one services, we're always telling partners in our education, but also in labor, if you need to take a break, you can tap out. Just let us know where you're going. Let us know how to get a hold of you if you need to come back, like for you. And we're like, all right, things are ramping up. You got to come
Yep.
back. And then also have that conversation beforehand. Have a plan. Be sure that you're both on board with what that would look like. Are you okay with them going to the gym? Are you
Mhm.
okay with them going to get something to eat and bring it back to the room? Would you rather they get something to eat and eat it outside of the room and come back when they're done? I have been at a labor once. This was crazy, and everybody was so happy. He left and played a round of golf. This was an
Oh,
induction, so we were there for 4 days, but he left, played golf, and came back.
oh my
She
God.
was like not bothered by it. He was happy as a clam. I was like, okay, works for
That's
me.
great.
Was one person less in the room, so it wasn't crowded. You just have to find what works for you, but be mindful, guys, that your partner might need to step out of the birth space too, because it is an intense experience for them as well. April,
Definitely.
what was he doing during labor? So those were helpful things to do leading up to it. What kind of things actually transpired in labor from all of that work that he had done previously?
So I had told him beforehand a couple things that I wanted him to do during labor, or I thought that I would. Again, had no idea what I was going to want during that time. But I told him that I wanted him to remind me to breathe and relax. That was a big thing. So he did that. And then our doula had showed him how to do the hip squeezes. And so he was doing those. What else? He was just rubbing my back, just comforting me if I wanted it in that point, which I did for most of the time. I did want it. He was making sure I was hydrated, making sure I was fed if I needed food at that point. So I wanted to make sure that I continued to eat as long as I could. So just really anything I needed, he was there. And he would, like I said, he was getting the pool ready. So I didn't even have to think about that. He handled all of that, which was really nice.
That is so nice. And I think it is such a good reminder that you don't always have to be doing something necessarily in labor, just your presence of being there, a
Mhm.
simple back rub, a simple, like, you look beautiful, a simple, you're working so hard, is
Mhm.
so powerful
Yeah.
because sometimes women don't actually need things in labor. They just need that reassurance of, you're good, you're safe, we see
Yep.
you. Let us know if you need anything. You're
Yeah.
rocking
It's
out. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I was struck by the powerfulness, the power of the moment that your baby came out and you looked down and you were like, oh my God, my baby is in the water. Holy cow, they're like coming out of me. Talk to us more about that. Tell us. I just want to hear more about it.
yeah. So I still have the picture of her little face in my mind. I don't think I'll ever, yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I can't remember the pain at this point. I can't at all. All I remember is that really the point of her coming out. That was like the biggest thing that I could remember. So when I saw her face, a couple things went through my mind. I was thinking, we're almost done. This is awesome. I was really excited because I was like, one or two more pushes, hopefully, and she's out after I saw her face. I also was in just disbelief that that little head just came out of me. I really truly couldn't believe it. Oh gosh, what else was I thinking? Honestly, no bad thoughts, which was great because at that point, one of my fears was shoulder dystocia, which I don't even, it's not even that common, but I for some reason just had a fear of it. Surprisingly, I did not think about that because at that point, I think that's when it would happen because the shoulders would get stuck at that point. Luckily I was able to put that in the back of my mind, and all I could think of was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be holding my baby in less than 5 minutes, hopefully. um and I just kept staring at her and being like, oh my gosh, this baby is now outside of me. This baby that I've had in my stomach for 9 months is going, I'm going to be holding this baby very soon. And it was so emotional, such an incredible moment that I will, like I said, never forget.
It really transforms you. It's like
Really.
it's a transformation of
Mhm.
you. You're a different person now.
For
How
sure.
did that, I want to say it must have instilled a level of confidence in you, like a
Yeah.
level of trust in your body, or just maybe like a reassurance of the trust that you already had in your body. Because you had a lot of trust going into this. So this was just like confirmation, reconfirmation of how powerful your body is. How does that inform your parenting? And do you think that if you hadn't have been experienced that, if you hadn't have experienced that, do you think you'd be a different parent? You think you might parent a little differently?
I think, yeah, probably, because that this just reassured, like you said, trust myself, my body. So I think going into parenting, I'm going to just tell myself, trust your instincts for the most part, and also be prepared. Know about the stages of what, I don't know, the leaps and everything like that, because going into the birth, I knew when everything was happening, I knew exactly what was happening. Like when I got sick, I knew, oh, this is transition. When I felt the baby move down, I was like, oh, I'm inactive. Like I knew everything that was happening as it was happening. And I think that I'm going to definitely carry that as well into motherhood and how we parent our child for sure. And I think that this situation of how it all happened, how it was all calm and amazing, there no panic at all in the birth. I think that is another thing that we can bring into parenting, just like the calmness and the non-anxiousness that a lot of parents do feel. I really hope that we can carry that.
That's so sweet and powerful. I'm just
Mhm.
imagining, even as the cord was wrapped around your baby's neck, it's like your midwife knew exactly what to do.
Oh yeah.
She recognized it was so common.
Mhm.
She recognized that it was an urgent matter. She wasn't like, ah, like we'll
No,
do that in a minute. She was like,
no.
hands off, Dad. I have something I have to do right now.
Yep.
I'll hand your
Yep.
baby over in just 1 second. It seems like she was able to provide very evidence-based, timely, effective, compassionate care without imprinting anxiety or fear or emergence into the situation, which I think is what a lot of people experience in the hospital system just because
Mhm.
of the way that model of care works.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think that is super powerful. And for anyone listening who has experienced that emergent feeling in the hospital system, I really encourage you to think about if it would be helpful for you. Was that truly an emergent situation, right? Or was that something that because of the model of care you chose to birth in, or maybe you needed to birth in, or you had to birth in because of lack of access in the US, was that then turned emergent, right? Was it really an emergency? Because this cord around the neck is such a great example. In the hospital, it is truly, oh my God, cord around, wow, and the whole
Yeah, I
room
always thought it
erupts.
was a
Totally,
horrible thing. I always thought that, and I came to
totally.
learn that it's not a big deal.
Totally. And there are parameters around that, right? I don't want to paint nuchal cords as this like very benign, always harmless thing,
Mm-hmm.
but cords that are wrapped around the neck once or twice are typically harmless. Inside the womb, your umbilical cord, your baby's umbilical cord, the umbilical cord that you and your baby share, is covered in slimy gel. We call it Wharton's jelly. So it's jelly, it's very slimy, and it allows the cord to avoid compression and to be able to slide. And it allows your baby to tangle themselves in there without it getting super either compressed or really tight. When cords are wrapped around the neck 3 times or more, they do tend to pose a little bit more of a risk. You also may find that your baby is not able to come out of your body either at all. So we need to cut it before your baby comes completely out. Or once they do get out, they don't have a lot of room. And so, in order for you to bring them to your chest, we either really need to unwrap it or we would have to cut it sooner than probably you had a preference for. But for the most part, what we see is 1 and 2, like, it wrapped once and twice around the neck, and they are typically not harmful, come with risk, absolutely everything does in birth, but they're typically very easily resolved. And I don't know, I'm, like, mind blown about how simple and calm it was handled at your home birth. You even said, "Take that into my next birth." Like, it was so calm, she instilled this confidence in us that even when things were, I guess, they needed immediate attention, we didn't have to be freaked out. And that is just, it's crazy how opposite it is in the hospital. And I think about all the things in the hospital that I witnessed as a doula that are not truly emergent like that. They are timely for sure. They require immediate care, but it doesn't have to feel fearful. And I think just so many people in the hospital experience that. So that's a beautiful situation to paint out that can be very different based on where you birth, and I think that's important then, and a lot of times that's lost. Okay, question about going to Home Depot. So your water breaks, you're like, "Honey, my water broke," and you guys are like, "Crap, we don't have a pool. Let's run to Home Depot really quick."
Yeah, so we had the pool. We had the pool.
Oh, you had the
It was
pool.
sorry, it wasn't the pool we needed. We had the pool. It was a part. It was we had to attach the hose to our shower
Got
to
it.
fill up the pool. So it was like a little adapter part that we needed. That was it. And I left out that we also went to Costco because I didn't have time to prepare food yet because I was going to be doing that in the next 2 weeks. I was going to prepare some meals and freeze them. Costco was right next to Home Depot. Yeah, I'm just walking through Costco having contractions. It was really funny, actually. At the
So
time, it was
funny.
pretty painful, but looking back, it's hilarious. Honestly, we laugh about it.
That is so funny. You must have, like, what was going through your mind? Because it must have been good to have the movement and it was a nice distraction. And it makes me wonder a little bit if that may be why, your contractions really did just take off. Your trust in your body. You allowed for spontaneous labor to happen. You dug right into the early labor laws of stay distracted, stay upright, stay hydrated, go on about life. Like you did that perfectly. You think going to Home Depot maybe helped your labor progress?
It might have. Haven't thought about it that way, but maybe. It's funny because in my mind, I was like, everyone tells you to rest in early
Yeah.
labor. So I was conflicted when that happened. I was like, I want to be up and moving and distracted, but I also want to rest. So in my head, I was like, all right, we'll go to Home Depot and Costco, and then I'll come home and rest. That was what I was thinking in my mind. That didn't happen. I tried, but that did not happen just because it progressed so fast. So
Maybe it
it might
helped.
have helped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, you also didn't labor in the tub. You waited until you were in transition or really close to pushing. How come?
Really, I didn't have time. And because in early labor, we got home, we ate, we had dinner, and things moved fast. Like I said, I tried to lay down and rest on the bed a little bit, but it didn't feel good to me. So I moved positions. And yeah, I really didn't have time to get in the tub
Yeah,
before then.
yeah.
I would have, if it was a little longer, early labor, I would have loved to take a bath. That would have been great. But I also know I didn't want to get in too quick or too close to the transition area because I know that can stall labor at some points. So I just, at that point, stayed out.
Yeah. All right, one of the things that I think keep women from exploring home birth is the idea that it has to be unmedicated because epidurals aren't a thing at home, obviously.
Mhm.
Describe the ring of fire unmedicated because
Mhm.
this is what I hear the most is I don't want to do contractions without an epidural, but I just cannot do the ring of fire. So what did it feel like? What was going through your head in the moment? And was it something that you ever regretted throughout the process?
Oh gosh, no, no regrets, not at all. It definitely hurt for sure. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And there was a point, I think it was right before the Ring of Fire, that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think every woman gets to that point in birth, or that does natural birth at least. And yeah, I definitely was like, this is when the Ring of Fire happened. Yeah, it hurt, but I knew that it wasn't going to last very long. And I knew that meant that my baby was going to come out soon. So again, with like feeling the head and everything, it almost like gave me some motivation to keep pushing. I did have to, again, think about pushing during the contractions when it felt good and stopping when they stopped. There were some times where I wanted to just keep pushing just to get her out. But my midwife also helped me with this. She was like, all right, stop pushing at this point, let rest for a second, and then start pushing again for the next contraction. So that was something that I need to remember next time I give birth, because that is when tears can happen and stuff. But anyways, yeah, the Ring of Fire was exactly what I expected. I expected it to be. Honestly, it was. It burned, it stinged a little bit. But like I said, I felt, I could feel it was her head coming out, and I got excited.
I love that. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, just so powerful. There's so many places in your labor that when I think about how you were treated and how your birth transpired compared to maybe a very common experience in the hospital. There are a lot of places where you can see how your midwife instilled confidence in you, encouraged you, handed that power back to you, or honored the power that you were already holding. Where in the hospital, a lot of times we see it be a very like doctor led. So the doctor wants to be in control. And sometimes there are attempts to take that control. Sometimes there are places where the control could be handed back to that patient, that mom, but it's not ever done in the hospital. So it's just a very different experience. And I don't know. I love it. I've gotten chills so many times in your story. Okay, one thing I do want to ask about is transfers because when you're choosing a midwife, it's important to know what your transfer would be, what your transfer plan would be. What did that conversation look like with your midwife? And also, what situations were you prepared to transfer in, if any?
Yeah, we talked about it a lot because it also was one of my fears that I had written down transferring. I really didn't want to do that, but at the same time, I knew that it could happen. And that was one of the things that we talked about a lot was if it happens, you need to just let it happen and not be upset. Because again, going back into the mindset, if you're transferring, something's happening, something's wrong, and then you're also your mindset, you're like, oh, I really don't want to go to the hospital. I really wanted to do this at home, and you're all bummed about it. That's not a good outlook going into the transfer to begin with. So we definitely talked about just if it happens, accepting it and just being okay with it and just focusing on birthing a healthy baby. And that's all that matters. The plan we had, it's actually funny. I forgot to mention this also. My husband had done like the morning my water broke, he had done a practice run to the hospital. Just happened that day. He's, oh, I'm gonna just practice and drive there just so we know where to go if we do have to transfer. It's just funny that it was that morning that he decided to do that, and then I ended up giving birth that day. So that's how we prepared. We definitely had a we had plan A was home birth, plan B was the hospital a little further away, plan C was the one that was super close to us. So we had everything planned out. I had a whole one pager of all my doctors and the names and numbers and like everything that we can need. I had that all ready in case we did have to transfer. So again, just preparation and knowing that, yeah, it could happen. The main reason that I was prepared to transfer was a long labor and just getting tired. I know that's especially for a first birth, that is a common reason that women get transferred. So that was the main one. And then after that, it was really more emergency situations, which I, again, didn't want to think about, but definitely had in my mind just in case. And that is why we had a plan C in place. I think preparation is the biggest thing going into thinking about just the home birth and transferring if we needed to.
Yeah. You make a good point about you got prepared, but you didn't dwell on them in a way that like allowed that fear to grow or gave it any power. And that's a lot of what I teach in our approach. So in the birth lounge and on this podcast and in our one-to-one services is like we can prepare without causing anxiety. And the preparation will actually probably ease your anxiety because regardless whether you prepare or you don't, the bad things can happen. They're a possibility.
Yep.
It's just a risk that we take when having babies. But if you know a bad thing might happen and you have a plan, you're going to have a lot less anxiety than if you know the bad thing can happen and you also have no freaking clue what you would do if it
Mhm.
happened to you. And that's something that's just something I talk about all the time. All right, my final question for you is you mentioned listening to the Birth Launch podcast in terms of planning and preparing for your birth. I want to know what the episodes that stick out in your mind that were so pivotal for you in planning for your birth.
Yeah, my favorite one is the village one because this is not planning for birth, this is planning for postpartum, but I also read the book, The First 40 Days, I think it's called. So I really like that. And I think a lot of preparation, I think when you prepare for birth, you sometimes forget about the postpartum period and it's so important. It's so important. And having a village, having help, being prepared for that period after the baby is so important. So that was definitely an episode that really stood out to me. I loved it. And then, oh gosh, what else? The birth stories, of course, I love those. And oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. Just all the ones about what could happen. What could happen, like I said, those just really helped me prepare mentally for anything that could happen at all.
Nice. All right. I'm so glad that the episodes were helpful for you. And that's my whole goal here. That the goal of this podcast is to give people a place that they can explore the options that otherwise they may not know about, and no one might be sharing this with them. Not all options are going to be right for everybody. And that's part of the understanding in the space too, is that you can explore all of your options. And then I actually encourage you to choose what's best for you. So cool. April, thank you so much for being here with me today. Where can people connect with you if they wanted to learn more about your health coaching or hear more about your story or ask about any resources that you shared in today's episode?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is amazing. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, it's at Hardeman Health, Hardeman Health. And then my website is also hardemanhealth.com. And that has a lot of resources for the health coaching aspect. And I'm looking to get more into pregnancy and postpartum in my health coaching, which is very exciting.
Nice. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here to share your story with us and listeners. How empowering was this to hear someone who, did the work? They trusted birth. They found the provider that was right for them. They prepared their partner. They had a plan. It just all worked out. And I know for so many people out there, I know you're thinking, okay, But that's just a fluke. That's just her story. This is like an April magical moment. I'm not going to get that. That's not true, you guys. I have been to so many births over the years. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. I just did that calculation this past weekend when I was telling somebody about what I did. And I've realized there is a way that you can prepare for birth to have the experience that you want, no matter the twists and turns. No matter what happens, you can stay in control. It doesn't mean that all of your options are going to be lovely, and it doesn't mean you're going to get a nice, smooth, quick labor like April, but it does mean that even when your birth pivots, you can be prepared and have a plan for what you want to take place in those situations. And I think, April, your story just highlighted that so perfectly. The preparation really does give you a smooth landing no matter what happens in your birth. So, listeners, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm always so grateful to spend time with you. It's always so much fun. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Be sure to follow April on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by Hee or the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye! Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly do value this community and I love hanging out with you. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent. It's an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who could use evidence-based information to help them have an informed and confident birth. I'd love to hear what you have to say and read your sweet words. By leaving us a review, you are helping other expectant mamas and their families find the podcast so that we can reduce birth trauma and improve maternity care in the U.S. one birth at a time. If you're interested in joining the Birth Lounge, go to thebirthlounge.com. If you want to connect with me on socials, you can find me at Tranquility by Hee on all platforms. Until next time, stay educated, stay supported, stay confident. Bye!